Hello students, welcome you all to this session. So in the previous class we have started a chapter called as ecosystems under the subject called as environmental studies. As you know, environmental studies is a subject involved in your syllabus of B.Sc first semester. Okay, so we have started with ecosystem. You know the meaning of ecosystem. Ecosystem means our surrounding environment is called as ecosystem. That we have seen types of ecosystem, like aquatic ecosystem means the organisms living in water are called as aquatic ecosystem. Again we have seen terrestrial ecosystem. Terrestrial means the organisms that are living on land are called as terrestrial ecosystem. Again in terrestrial there are two types, natural and artificial. Natural ones are like forest, gardens, for natural ecosystem. Artificial ecosystems are man-made ecosystems like aquarium, dams are artificial ecosystem. Okay, today we are going to study about energy flow. Before going to the meaning of energy flow, as you know, we study the law of thermodynamics, that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can be only transformed from one form to another form. As the different trophic levels, there is always the flow of energy from one trophic level to another trophic level. So what is energy flow? Energy flow is the flow of energy from one trophic level to another trophic level, and that flow of energy is unidirectional. How is the flow of energy? Unidirectional. Uni means single, in one direction only. It means that if energy is lost, as you go to higher trophic levels, the energy first they are consumed. Producers produce the food. That produced food is being consumed by the primary consumer. So little energy is transformed there. So from primary consumer to secondary consumer. Again some of the energy is lost. Then from secondary to tertiary to quaternary. Then come to decomposers. So first come to producers, then coming to consumers. Again in consumers there are primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary consumers, and last comes the decomposers. As I told you earlier in previous class, the decomposers are playing a very important role in our ecosystem. Means you know, first is producers. Who are the producers here? The green plants. As you know, green plants prepare the food with the help of sunlight, carbon dioxide, water, etc. And they are called as autotrophic organisms. And that prepared food is consumed by all these categories. Like consumers, we are consuming the food prepared by the green plants. Here again they are primary consumer, secondary consumer, tertiary consumer. So some amount of energy is transforming or flowing from one form to one trophic level to another trophic level. As energy is transformed there, this flow is also called as calorific effect. Which effect? Calorific effect. Calories, it is the unit of energy, so it is also called as calorific effect. So energy is transformed from one form to another form, or one trophic level to another trophic level. That is called as energy flow. Okay, there are some two laws. The first law, I already told you, that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. So as you know, energy is neither, can you create the energy? No. But can you destroy the energy? No. We can't see the energy, but it is present in the energy of animals or plants or human beings, but it is only transformed from one form to another form. That is called as the first law of thermodynamics. First law of thermodynamics. You have studied this in physics also, it will come under physics also. First law of thermodynamics, energy is neither created, you can't create energy, right, nor destroyed, but it can only be transformed from one form to another form. This is stated by first law, that is called first law of thermodynamics. Now this is second law of thermodynamics. It states that energy is transformed. How much of energy is transformed? Second law of thermodynamics states that in first law we are telling that energy is transformed. How much of energy is transformed? Only 10% of energy is consumed by organisms. The remaining energy is lost as heat, or you can say it is a waste. So you know, by photosynthesis, so many plants, animals are consuming food. Even we human beings are using sunlight for various activities. So sunlight, or it is called photosynthetically active radiation, is very essential for all the organisms to perform their activities. Okay, right? Then how much of energy we are using for those processes? Only 10% of energy we are using. How much? Only 10% we are using. Remaining 90% of energy is lost as heat, or it is a waste. That is called as second law of thermodynamics. Okay. Now we will go to next one. That is called as PAR, photosynthetically active radiation. Photosynthetically active radiation. Radiation is sun's radiation. How much you are getting? Only 10%. Remaining is lost as heat. Okay. And that heat is being transformed to plants, animals, human beings. Especially plants almost require sunlight to carry out their photosynthetic activities. So thus flow of energy is unidirectional. This is a very important point, because once the energy is consumed, producer to consumer, energy is decreased, consumer to primary consumer, again some amount of energy is decreased, primary to secondary, secondary to tertiary, some amount of energy is flowing to all categories. Does energy come back to producers? No, because it is already lost as heat. That we call it as photosynthetically active radiation. Okay. Now we will go to trophic levels. And right here, trophic level. Each level in the food chain or pyramid is called as a trophic level. For example, I told you producer, consumer, decomposers. These are all a trophic level. This is one trophic level, this is another trophic level, this is third trophic level. Means the category in which these organisms have been divided. The producers and consumers in ecosystem can be arranged into different feeding groups. Now you know, producers are producing the food. Who is depending on producers? Consumers. They are placed in one group. It is called trophic level. Consumers are again depending on whom? Primary consumer depending on these consumers. Again primary consumer. Secondary consumer depending on primary consumer. So this is one trophic level, this is one trophic level. So these categories are called as trophic levels. The producers represent the first trophic level. Who is representing the first trophic level? First trophic level is producers. Producers are the first trophic level. Always remember, the first trophic level is occupied by the producers. As you know, producers are producing the food, that is the green plant. So the first trophic level occupied by producers. Already know, producers are the organisms which are preparing their own food. Once again you recall this, producers are the organism which are preparing their own food. So they are named as producers. So first trophic level, TL is trophic level. First trophic level is occupied by producers. They are called as green plants. Herbivores are the second trophic level. Herbivores. Herbivores are occupying the second trophic level. You know herbivorous plants, you studied in earlier when you are kids. Herbivorous animals are the green plants eating animals, like you can say deers, cow, etc. They are all herbivores, which are depending only on plants for their food. Then primary consumers or primary carnivores are secondary consumers. Primary carnivores are secondary consumers. Primary consumer, secondary consumer. Then coming top carnivores are tertiary consumers. Top carnivores are secondary consumers. This is how the trophic levels are there in the food chain or food web. We will study later that. So trophic levels, so mainly first trophic level. Who is occupying the first trophic level? The producers. Then comes the consumers, they are herbivorous, second trophic level. Then comes primary carnivores and secondary consumers or secondary carnivores, or they are called as top carnivores. Okay, now we will go to another important concept, that is the food chain. You know the meaning of food chain. What is food chain? meaning of food, right? It is a nutrition, that is which the organisms are obtaining to get energy and perform their metabolic activities. We all require food to perform the daily activities. But food chain means what? It means that a number of organisms are interconnected or depending on each other to obtain food is called as a food chain. So it is an interconnecting link. Interconnecting link between organisms to obtain their nutrition or to obtain food is called food chain. Now there are different types of food chain. Before we go to different types of food chain, it is a pathway where energy is transferred. See children, here also energy is being transferred from one trophic level to another trophic level. So they are moving in a straight line. For example, take an example of a sun. Then sun is in presence of sunlight, there is grass is growing, then coming to grass, then this grass is eaten by an animal called as zebra, then this zebra is being eaten by lion. Now see a simple food chain we have drawn. So in presence of sunlight, plants are growing, grass is growing, grass is being eaten by zebra, zebra is eaten by lion. So this is herbivore and that is the carnivorous animal. This is a herbivorous, grass, herbs is eaten by next level and then next trophic level. So this is a simple food chain. So animals here are animals or organisms are interdepending on each other for their food or to obtain nutrition. Now what happens if any trophic level is being destroyed? Now if we kill the zebras of a particular trophic level or a particular ecosystem, what happens? There are no zebras. Does lion eat grass? Does lion eat grass? No. So zebra is very essential. So what it indicates, it means that every organism in our environment is very important because we all are depending on each other to obtain the food. If zebras are killed, lion does not eat grass because it is an omnivorous animal. So zebra are very essential. If zebras are there, it will eat grass, then zebra is eaten by lion. So every organism is very important. So food chains show all how living things get their energy from food. So to obtain energy, what do we require? We require food to get energy. Then that energy is being transformed in different trophic level. That is what we are studying, energy flow. How does energy come from? Energy comes from the food. How energy is obtained? By interconnecting food chain. Chain means they are interconnected. If we take another example, then we take sun, then comes grass, then comes grasshopper, then comes snake, then comes eagle. This is another common simple food chain already discussed in previous class. So this is how the different animals are interconnected. Okay. Now if we see the trophic levels of food chain, here comes three categories again: herbivores, carnivores and omnivores. You know these three levels. Herbivores are the green plants or they eat only plants. Can you give some examples of animals eating only plants? Can say goat, or small animals like sheep, horse, deer, rabbits are examples of herbivores. They are eating only leaves or green plants or fruits. Carnivorous animals are both plant as well as animals eating. Okay. Omnivores are completely depending on the animals. Larger animals are eaten, small animals are eaten by larger animals. So herbivores, carnivores and omnivores are three categories in the trophic levels of food chain. Okay. Then comes different category here. Producers, already we discussed that. Producers, consumers and decomposers. We'll discuss in detail about decomposers. Producers, you know, they are green plants preparing the food. Consumers are the primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary consumers. Now, what happens if the animal or plant is dead? What happens? It is buried inside the earth. Okay. Now, decomposing means breaking down that complex organic matter into simple absorbable form. Decomposers are bacteria, fungi, they are all decomposers. Means they decompose the dead organic matter. They are also called as saprophytes. But in trophic levels, they are not given any category in ecological pyramids, because decomposers are playing very important role, right? They are also given some importance, but it is not so. So decomposers are mainly the bacteria which decay the organic matter and they make the soil nutrient rich. Means that soil is very fertile, so that it can grow large number of plants. So it starts a new food chain. Now the different types of food chain. Shall we go to types of food chain now? Yes, types of food chain will go now. There are different types of food chain. Number one is grazing food chain. Grazing means herbivorous animals like cows, buffaloes, they are mainly grazing animals. So first one is types of food chains. First one, grazing food chain. It can be abbreviated as GFC. Grazing means what kind of animals are coming here? This is the normal food chain that you observe in which plants are the producers. Grazing, grazing animals, they are mainly producers here, which are green plants preparing their own food, and that is being energy is flowed into the next trophic level, that is by herbivores. So producers and then to herbivores. Second, coming to grazing food chain involving grazing animals, saprophytic or detritus food chain. Number 2, saprophytic or detrivores, detritus food chain. Saprophytic, just now we have discussed. Saprophytic organisms are the one which are depending on dead and decaying organic matter for their food, and they are followed by decomposers and so on. So they come under the category of detritus food chain. Number 3, parasitic food chain. PFC. The parasites. Parasites are the organisms which are depending on the host to obtain its nutrition. That may be ectoparasitic or endoparasitic, that. So there are different types of parasites, ecto and endoparasites. Parasitic food chain is the one which is depending on the host organism to consume its food. Okay. Now what about the energy flow in these food chains? Again, the energy is flowing from one trophic level to another trophic level. So this is all about the food chain. Okay, understood? I hope you all understood. Now we will go to the food web. Now we will discuss about food webs or food web. Okay. How do you define food web? Food chain, interconnecting or link between organisms to obtain the food. Food web means interconnecting food chains. Many food chains together form a food web. Meaning of web means large, as World Wide Web. Means a large network is, huge network is there. Here also, this is a small simple food chain. This likewise, many food chains together form a food web. So food web means interconnecting food chains form food web. Web means the name itself indicates. Web means a wide network. Here also energy is transferred from one trophic level to another trophic level, from one trophic that is food chain to another food chain. So interconnecting food chains forms the food web. Okay. Now how it forms the food web? The different types of food webs are there. So There are number of different types of food webs in which they differ in how they are constructed, on what basis they are constructed, depending on the environment, depending on the number of organisms, depending on the type of organisms. Different types of food webs are being classified depending on the flow of energy, fossil, functional food webs, whether they are functional or not. So different types of food webs are depicted in our environment or ecosystem. Let us see one by one. Connectance food webs. Which one? Connectance. First one, that is types of food webs. What do you mean by connectance food web? The name indicates connectance. Means here it shows the connection between the food chain, food web. As you can see, the connectance, the arrow is depicted here. The arrow is depicted in the food webs where it is showing that it is connected to all other organisms or all other food chains. So, it is a connecting link between different food chains, that is called as connectance food webs. So, one species is being consumed by another species. So, as you can see here, one species is being consumed by another species. How we are showing, depicting it in terms of arrow mark, that shows connectance food webs. Interaction food webs, number 2. As the name indicates, again interaction. As you all know, always there is interaction between each and every organism in the environment. Without interaction, all these are functionless. So always there is interaction between each and every organism. Without interaction, there is no functioning in the ecosystem. So similar to connectance, one species is being consumed by another species. It means that it is interconnected. It is always connecting to the each other. So it is called interconnection, interaction food webs. Energy flow food webs. Already you know that. Energy flow food webs. That's the meaning of energy flow. So in every interaction, every interconnection food chain, there is flow of energy between the organisms. Then fossil food webs. As you know, what are fossils? Fossils are the remnants of dead plants and animals which have been dead long years ago. So food webs can be dynamic, and there are some assumptions that there are some records of fossils. Some food chains are functional, some are non-functional, but still they can be found in the environment by looking at the fossils. So by looking at the fossils of the animal or plant, we can come to know that these organisms may be interconnected long years ago, or they may be formed a food chain, or they may be formed a food web. So by keeping the record of fossils, we can say that there are fossil food webs. Then coming to functional food webs. Functional food webs. As the name indicates, functional. Fossil means what? The animals are not there now, they have been dead, they are not present now. So functional means they are already functioning and they are present in the environment. So functional food webs depict the relationship between organisms and influence the growth and rate of the population. It means that influence the growth of the population, means still they are present in the environment, and that depicts the population of the environment. So they are called as functional food webs. Okay, so these are about food webs and types of ecosystems. And you know the different types of ecosystems, aquatic and also there are aquatic food webs and terrestrial food webs. Aquatic and terrestrial food webs. So there are some organisms which are aquatic, means they are living in the water, so they can't stay on the land. So there only they have to construct their own food chain, and those interconnected food chain forms the food webs. Terrestrial, majority of the terrestrial, so animals living on land are called terrestrial organisms, and land animals are forming a food chain, and those food chains in turn forms a food web. So this is how there are aquatic and terrestrial food webs. Next, coming to what is the difference now? You know that food chain, food webs are there. Now we know animals and plants are all depending on each other. Now as energy is being transformed and there are some chemicals along with the food chain, some harmful chemical, they are being transported to each trophic level. Now grass, we are going from different plants, you can take an example. Now we grow the plants, right? To get good yield, what do the farmers do? They use chemical spray, fertilizers. Chemical fertilizers are being sprayed to these plants. Chemical fertilizers are sprayed to these plants. Now we are watering the plant. Now that chemical is entering the water, and that water is flowing into the river or water bodies, and that water is being consumed by animals. Likewise, the chemical composition is entering finally to different organisms, and finally we are also consuming that water or animal. What happens? That chemical content enters our body. So the concentration of chemical in our body or in an organism body in the environment is called as bioaccumulation. Accumulation of a poisonous substance is called as bioaccumulation, or biomagnification means there is increase in the chemical concentration of a chemical in the particular trophic level is called biomagnification. So what happens here? Those chemicals or pollutants are entering into our body or any animal's body, that is called as biomagnification, but it is very, very dangerous. If you take an example of DDT is a very harmful chemical that is being sprayed to the plants to get rid of insects or pests, but directly or indirectly it is entering our body also, and as it goes from one trophic level to another trophic level, the concentration of the DDT or chemical composition increases. See, the flow of energy is being decreased, cannot be increased or cannot be taken back, but that chemical composition, as it goes from higher trophic level, the concentration increases, that chemical composition concentration increases, that is called biomagnification or persistent organic pollutants, and it goes from phytoplankton to zooplankton. Phyto means plant, zoo means animal, so from plants it is going to animal, animal again into human beings. So we are also affected from so many chemical substances. Now food chain versus food webs. What do you mean by food chain? You know, interconnecting organisms to obtain their food. An interconnecting food chain forms the food web, and always there is interconnecting between those two for the requirement of food. Now, is there any difference between food chain and food web other than that? So this is how there is interconnection between food chain and food web. So what we have discussed today, in today's session, we have discussed about food chain. Before that, energy flow. Energy is very, very essential. And how much of energy is transformed to one trophic level to another trophic level? Only 10% energy is required, and we are seeing the laws of thermodynamics, first law and second law. Why we are using law of thermodynamics here? Because it is related to energy. Thermo means energy. So how much of energy is being transported to one trophic level to another trophic level, that we had seen. And how is the flow of energy? Once again, how is the flow of energy? It is unidirectional, means flows in only one direction from all trophic levels, from producers to consumers and then to the decomposers. There is only unidirectional flow of energy, one direction. Then we are seeing the food chain, meaning of food chain, definition, types of food chain, grazing food chain, detritus food chain and parasitic food chain. Then next we had also seen food webs. Food webs means interconnecting food chain forms food webs. Before that we have also seen some animals like herbivores, carnivores, omnivores, and then they are producers, consumers, decomposers. Decomposers are bacteria and fungi which decompose the waste substances. Then different types of food chain, food webs are connectance food webs, interaction food webs, energy flow food webs, fossil food webs and functional food webs. Okay. So once again, what is a food chain? It is a linear sequence of organisms where nutrients and energy is transformed from one organism to another organism. Nutrients and energy is being transformed from one trophic level or one trophic level to another trophic level, or one organism to another organism is called a food chain. Three types of food chain: grazing food chain, once again grazing food chain, parasitic food chain and detritus food chain. Okay. Now what is energy flow? How is the flow of energy? Energy flow is the amount of energy that moves along with the food chain. See, this is one food chain. Here some energy is being transformed, and then is another food chain is forming. So from here, this is one food chain. This is another food chain. Here energy is transforming, and that energy is transforming to this also. So they are all interconnected, and then forms the food web. So we have seen about the trophic levels in different food chains. So this is all about food chain and food web. Now we will go to ecological succession. What do you mean by the term ecology? Ecology you know already, environment. Succession. Now you know the different types of plants, animals, water bodies are there in the environment. So we are seeing both biotic and abiotic components are very essential for the survival of any organism. Both biotic and abiotic components are essential. So ecological succession. Let us studying two, hierarch succession and hierarch succession. Now you know organisms occupy a particular, they may be habitat, that is they may be aquatic or terrestrial. Some are living in land. Now that water body, is it formed newly or it is very old one? That is called eutrophication. You studied in PUC. Eutrophication means when the lake is just newly formed water body, the organisms are very new, very few organisms are there, water will be too cold, right? So number of organisms also less, and as in how they are reproducing, forming more number of organisms, the water becomes warmer and warmer because of the accumulation of more number of animals, and they are excreting the waste substance in the water only, and slowly the water becomes warmer and warmer as the days pass, and the number of organisms also increase in the water body. That is hierarch succession. And finally they lead to the drying of lake. Means after many years or millions of years, that water becomes dried up, occupied by all animals, and finally that land becomes completely, the water body becomes completely dried up. There is no water at all. That is called eutrophication. Hierarch succession means there are some desert plants and animals which are living in desert areas. They are forming hierarch succession, hierarch and hierarch succession. That already studied in your PUC classes. Hierarch means the animals which are aquatic. Aquatic plants and animals are called hierarch, and aquatic terrestrial animals, or you can say especially desert ones, they are called as hierarch succession. They are occupying, adapted to the desert life, means they are aquatic. Aquatic plants and animals, and hierarch, they are living in deserts. For example, camel, rats, squirrels. Then coming to cactus, plants, we take example. Hierarch, you can take fish, frog, prawns. They are all hydric animals and hydric plants. Aquatic, that is hydrilla, zostera, velisneria, they are aquatic plants, and desert animals you can see camels, and plants are cactus, opuntia, means they are modified in such a way that they are adapted to particular type of environment. And in next session we will see about in detail about ecological succession. Thank you.